First Contact Folly. The Alestian Dominion's flagship, Celestial Sovereignty, hung in the void like a jeweled predator, its iridescent hull reflecting starlight in patterns that had made lesser species weep with terror and awe. At 15 kilometers from bow to stern, the vessel was a testament to the Alestians' 5,000 years of uncontested rule over the Andromeda Arm. Grand Admiral Theron stood on the command bridge, his tall, lithe form draped in ceremonial armor that caught the ambient light and scattered it in prismatic displays. 4 arms crossed over his chest in a gesture of supreme confidence as he gazed out at the new star system his fleet had just entered. "Preliminary scans, Sub-Commander," he ordered, his voice melodic yet cold. Sub-Commander Ilara activated the sensor array with a gesture of her upper right hand. "System contains 8 planets, 1 habitable. Detecting artificial structures and emissions consistent with a pre-FTL civilization." "Sir." Theron's mouth curved into what might charitably be called a smile. "Another primitive world to bring into the embrace of the Dominion. How fortunate for them." The bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, their 4-armed forms moving through the space with practiced grace. The Alestians had long considered their physiological form, tall, slender, 4-armed, with skin that naturally produced bioluminescent patterns, to be the pinnacle of evolution. Their technological supremacy had only reinforced this belief. "Sir," Ilara's voice held a note of confusion. "We're detecting an artificial object approaching from the 3rd planet. It appears to be a vessel." "Display," ordered Theron. The holographic projection materialized in the center of the bridge, showing a spacecraft that seemed to defy explanation. The vessel was asymmetrical, cobbled together from what looked like different materials and design philosophies. Parts of it gleamed with polished metal, while others were clearly patched with whatever had been available. It was barely 300 meters long, a mere speck compared to the Alestian flagship. Laughter rippled through the bridge. "What manner of craft is that?" Theron asked, amusement evident in his tone. "It looks like it would fall apart if we simply increased our gravitational wake." "Unknown classification, sir," Ilara replied. "Scans indicate chemical propulsion for maneuvering, what might be rudimentary fusion for main propulsion, and..." She paused, bewildered. "Primitive projectile weapons. There's also substantial radiation shielding, suggesting they may use nuclear fission." "How quaint," Theron remarked. "Open communications. Let's introduce ourselves to these innovators." The holographic display shifted to show the interior of the approaching vessel. A human sat in what appeared to be a command chair, though it looked more like a comfortable recliner than anything designed for military use. The human had dark skin, short cropped hair with streaks of gray, and wore what seemed to be a patchwork uniform, part flight suit, part leather jacket, with various insignia sewn onto it. "This is Grand Admiral Theron of the Alestian Dominion," Theron announced with practiced magnanimity. "Your system now falls under our protection and guidance. Prepare to receive boarding parties who will begin your cultural integration and technological uplift." The human blinked slowly, then took a sip from a steaming mug before responding. "Well, that's mighty presumptuous of you," the human said with a mild accent. "Captain Morgan of the independent vessel Patchwork. We're not in the market for protection, guidance, or whatever else you're selling today." Theron's bioluminescent patterns flashed with irritation. "Perhaps I wasn't clear. The Alestian Dominion isn't offering. We're informing. Your species has been discovered by a galactic power. Your integration is not optional." Captain Morgan set down the mug and leaned forward slightly. "You know, we have a saying back home. Don't poke the bear. It's wisdom from when we were still figuring out which animals would eat us and which wouldn't." "Are you threatening us?" Theron asked incredulously. "Your vessel is less than a 50th the size of my flagship alone, and I command a fleet of 30 ships." "Not threatening," Morgan clarified. "Just offering some friendly advice. Also, you might want to update your scans. Your count is off." Ilara's hands moved rapidly over her console. "Sir," Additional vessels have appeared from behind the planet's moon. 17. No, 23 in total. The holographic display widened to show a ragtag collection of ships, each as eclectic in design as the patchwork. Some were barely larger than shuttlecraft, while others approached a kilometer in length. What they all shared was a complete lack of aesthetic uniformity. They were functional machines, not works of art like Celestian vessels. Captain Morgan. Theron's voice had lost its amusement. I don't believe you understand your situation. The Celestian Dominion has brought civilization to hundreds of worlds. Those who resist suffer. Allow me to demonstrate. Theron nodded to his weapons officer. Target the smallest of their vessels with a minimal yield energy discharge. The celestial sovereignty hummed as one of its smaller weapon systems charged. A pulse of blue-white energy lanced out toward a human shuttle barely 50 meters long. The energy struck and dissipated harmlessly over a shield that flickered gold for a moment before becoming invisible again. Silence fell over the Celestian bridge. That wasn't very neighborly, Morgan remarked, taking another sip from the mug. Let me guess. You're wondering how a primitive pre-FTL civilization has energy-dispersing shields. Before Theron could respond, Morgan continued. See, that's the problem with species that never had to struggle. You build pretty. We build tough. You perfect. We improvise. Ilara's voice was tight with alarm. Sir, the human vessels are deploying. Something. Small objects. Hundreds of them. The objects, each no larger than a human fist, moved with surprising speed, surrounding the Celestian vessels. Captain Morgan. Theron's voice was controlled but tense. What are these devices? We call them NATs, Morgan explained casually. Little autonomous drones. They can do all sorts of things. Scanning, communication relays, deploying countermeasures. As if on cue, the drones activated, generating a field that rendered the Celestian vessel's sensors useless. And selective electromagnetic disruption, Morgan finished. Right now, your fancy targeting systems are about as useful as a chocolate tea kettle. Theron's bioluminescence flashed with alarm. Fire all weapons. Destroy these devices. The Celestian ships fired blindly, their energy weapons lashing out in all directions, and missing the tiny, agile drones entirely. You know, Morgan said conversationally, we humans had to solve a problem early on. We weren't the strongest species on our planet, or the fastest. We didn't have natural weapons or armor. So we got smart instead. We learned to use what we had, to make tools, to adapt. The bridge of the patchwork expanded in the holographic display, showing more humans at various stations, all watching the Celestian ships with calm interest. Your civilization developed in ideal conditions, Morgan continued. Ours developed in spite of everything. Predators, diseases, climate disasters, our own self-destructive tendencies. Hell, we nearly wiped ourselves out half a dozen times. As Morgan spoke, the human ships began moving into a formation that surrounded the Celestian fleet. The ships you're looking at. They're not uniform because we don't waste resources on aesthetics when function will do. That one there, Morgan pointed to a bulky freighter, used to be a mining vessel. We converted it. That sleek one was designed for atmospheric flight. We modified it. We reuse. We repurpose. We survive. Theron's 4 hands gripped the command rail. What do you want? Want. Morgan seemed genuinely surprised by the question. We don't want anything from you. We were perfectly happy not knowing you existed. You're the ones who showed up talking about protection and integration. One of the human vessels moved closer to the Celestian flagship. It was smaller than the others, barely 100 meters long, but its hull bristled with what appeared to be sensor equipment. That's the Curious George, Morgan explained. Research vessel. Right now it's analyzing every aspect of your ships, from hull composition to energy signatures. To what end? Theron demanded. Morgan shrugged. Knowledge is power. If you decide to be a problem, we'll need to know how to solve you. The implications hung in the vacuum between them. Perhaps, Theron said carefully, We have been hasty in our approach. The Alestian Dominion values diplomacy, as well as strength. That's more like it. Morgan nodded approvingly. So, here's what's going to happen. You're going to back your pretty ships out of our solar system. Then, if you're interested in actual diplomatic relations, the kind between equals, you can send a properly credentialed representative. One ship, unarmed. And if we refuse? Morgan sighed. Then we'll demonstrate why it's a bad idea to corner an animal that spent its entire evolutionary history learning how to kill things bigger and stronger than itself. As if to emphasize the point, readings from the Nats showed that every human vessel had locked targeting systems onto specific vulnerable points of the Alestian ships. Theron, for the first time in his distinguished career, felt something unfamiliar, the cold touch of fear. These humans, with their patchwork ships and improvised technology, had neutralized the most powerful fleet in the quadrant without firing a single shot. Very well, Captain Morgan. We will withdraw to the edge of your system and await diplomatic instructions. Morgan smiled. Excellent choice, Admiral. Oh, and one more thing. Yes, Theron asked warily. Next time you meet a new species, try saying hello before you start making demands. Works wonders for first impressions. As the communication ended, Theron stared at the strange, asymmetrical collection of human ships. Everything he had been taught about the natural order of technological development, about the superiority of Alestian civilization, had been challenged in a single encounter. And somewhere deep in his mind, a disturbing thought formed. What other assumptions about the galaxy might the Alestian Dominion have gotten wrong? Diplomacy by necessity. 3 standard days later, a single Alestian vessel, the diplomatic corvette Harmonious Discourse, approached Earth orbit as agreed. The ship was a fraction of the flagship's size, though it maintained the same crystalline aesthetic that characterized Alestian engineering. Its hull rippled with subtle bioluminescent patterns that signaled peaceful intentions in Alestian culture, though the humans couldn't possibly know this. Ambassador Lyra stood on the bridge, her ceremonial robes flowing around her 4-armed form. Unlike most Alestians, she had spent her career studying other species, trying to understand the galaxy's diversity, rather than simply categorizing it into Alestian and pre-Alestian. Ambassador, we're receiving coordinates for docking, her aide, Valen, reported. The humans have a station in orbit. The station appeared on their view screen. Another example of human pragmatic design. It was modular, clearly expanded over time as needs changed and resources allowed. Parts of it gleamed with new materials while others showed the patina of age and repair. It wasn't beautiful by Alestian standards, but it possessed a certain functional elegance. Proceed with docking, Lyra ordered. Remember, we are here to understand, not to judge. The Alestian corvette docked with surprising ease, the station's adaptive berth adjusting to accommodate the foreign design. When the airlock opened, Lyra and her small delegation were met by a group of humans, led by a woman with silver-streaked black hair pulled into a tight bun, wearing a dark blue uniform adorned with symbols of rank. Ambassador Lyra, welcome to Harmony Station. I'm Admiral Helena Chen, Earth United Space Command. The human extended a hand in what Lyra recognized from her briefings as a greeting gesture. With only slight hesitation, Lyra extended her lower right hand to meet it. Thank you for your welcome, Admiral Chen. We appreciate this opportunity to correct our unfortunate initial contact. Let's call it a learning experience. Shen replied with a diplomatic smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Please, follow me to the conference room. Captain Morgan will be joining us shortly. As they walked through the station corridors, Lyra noted the diversity among the humans. Variations in height, skin tone, facial features, and body types that far exceeded anything seen among Alestians. More surprising was how they interacted with technology. Where Alestians created interfaces that worked in harmony with their biology, humans seemed to adapt themselves to their machines as often as the reverse. The conference room offered a spectacular view of Earth below, a blue-green jewel wrapped in swirling white clouds. "Your world is beautiful," Lyra commented, genuinely impressed. "It's resilient," Chen replied. "It's had to be, with us living on it." Captain Morgan entered, still wearing the same eclectic uniform from their first encounter, though perhaps slightly more formal. "Ambassador, good to see you under better circumstances." "Indeed, Captain. I must convey Grand Admiral Theron's personal apologies for the misunderstanding." Morgan smiled wryly. "Is that what they're calling it now?" "Well, apology accepted, though I suspect it comes with conditions." "Perceptive," Lyra acknowledged. "The Dominion Council is concerned. Your technological development doesn't follow expected patterns. You've achieved capabilities in some areas that exceed our own, while remaining surprisingly limited in others. We prioritize based on need," Chen explained. "Defense technologies, resource efficiency, adaptability, these kept us alive. Aesthetics and convenience came second." A human aide entered, distributing beverages, water for the Alestians, and something steaming for the humans. "This is coffee," Morgan explained, noticing Lyra's curious gaze. "One of humanity's greatest discoveries. Bitter bean water that helps us think faster." Lyra detected the humor, but also the underlying truth. "I'm curious. Your ships, they're so different from each other. Is there no standardization?" Chen and Morgan exchanged glances. "Our history is complicated," Chen began. 50 years ago, Earth was fragmented. Nations competed for resources, territory, influence. When we detected your kind, not you specifically, but other non-human civilizations, everything changed. You knew about alien life before we discovered you." This contradicted everything in Lyra's briefing. "We detected signals," Morgan clarified. "Nothing clear enough to decipher, but enough to confirm we weren't alone. It forced a choice, unite or remain vulnerable." "The unification wasn't smooth," Chen continued. "Some nations had advanced space capabilities, others barely had satellites. When we finally formed Earth United, our fleet was a mismatched collection of whatever each nation contributed. Rather than start from scratch, we adapted what we had," Morgan added. "Russian engine designs meshed with Chinese hull technology and American weapon systems. Indian shields integrated with Brazilian communications arrays. The result is eclectic," Chen admitted, "but highly effective. Each ship represents solutions to different problems, perspectives from different cultures." Lyra's bioluminescence flickered with understanding. "Diversity as strength, a concept many Alestians would find difficult to comprehend." The conversation progressed to technical exchanges, cultural comparisons, and eventually diplomatic protocols. Hours passed as the two species began the delicate dance of building trust. Then an aide rushed in and whispered urgently to Admiral Chen. Her expression darkened immediately. "Ambassador, we have a situation. A vessel has entered the outer system, moving at high velocity toward Earth. It's not Alestian, and it's not responding to hails." Lyra's patterns flashed with alarm. "May I see?" The conference room display activated, showing a vessel unlike any Lyra had seen before, organic in appearance, with pulsing veins of energy running through what looked like living tissue. "Harvesters," she whispered, 4 hands clenching simultaneously. "You know them?" Morgan demanded. "They're why the Dominion began its expansion," Lyra explained quickly. "They harvest resources, including biological material, from worlds they encounter. They're nomadic, ruthless, and technologically advanced. We've fought them for centuries. And now they're here," Chen stated grimly. "Convenient timing." "You suspect us?" Lyra asked, though she understood the suspicion. "Let's say the timing raises questions," Morgan replied carefully. "How did they find Earth right after you did?" Lyra's patterns shifted to a color humans couldn't see, the Alestian equivalent of blanching. "They may have followed us. Harvester detection technology is exceptional. They could have tracked our fleet's energy signature." "So you led them here?" Chen's voice was cold. Unintentionally, Lyra emphasized. But yes, it's possible. The tension in the room thickened until Morgan broke it with a pragmatic question. What are their weaknesses? Lyra hesitated only briefly before making a decision that would change interstellar politics forever. Their hulls are organic and regenerative, making conventional weapons minimally effective. However, they're vulnerable to specific radiation frequencies that disrupt their biological functions. Do you have the specifications? Chen asked. I do, but... Lyra paused. This is classified Dominion military intelligence. And right now, it's the only thing standing between that harvester and 8 billion human lives, Morgan countered. Lyra made her choice. I'll provide what we know. But our conventional approaches have only been partially effective. The harvesters adapt quickly. Adaptation is something humans understand very well, Chen responded, already activating communications. All ships, battle stations. This is not a drill. What followed was a flurry of activity that left the Alestian delegation struggling to keep pace. Humans moved with purpose, their previously casual demeanor replaced by focused determination. Within 30 minutes, a joint command center had been established on the station, with human and Alestian expertise merge. The human ships, the same Ragdig fleet that had confronted Theron, formed a defensive perimeter around Earth. Each vessel had been rapidly modified based on Lyra's information, their weapons recalibrated to emit the harmful radiation frequencies. They're accelerating, a human officer reported. Estimated contact in 40 minutes. Lyra studied the tactical display with growing concern. Even with the modifications, one harvester vessel against your fleet. The outcome is uncertain. Then we change the rules, Morgan stated, turning to Chen. The Galileo Project. Chen's eyes widened slightly. It's not tested. Neither was coffee until someone drank it, Morgan replied with grim humor. Chen nodded sharply. Activate Galileo. Authorization, Chen Alpha 70. On the display, a new signal appeared from Earth's surface, a small craft rising rapidly through the atmosphere. What is Galileo? Lyra asked. Something we developed after detecting your civilization's signals, Morgan explained. A delivery system for an experimental weapon. It was our insurance policy. The harvester vessel approached relentlessly, ignoring communications and warnings. As it came within range, it launched smaller craft, biological drones that moved with disturbing organic fluidity. All ships, engage, Chen ordered. The human fleet opened fire with their modified weapons. Beams of precisely calibrated radiation struck the harvester drones, causing some to convulse and become inert. Others adapted, their living hulls shifting to resist the attack. Adaptation confirmed, a science officer reported. Effectiveness decreasing by 23% per minute. As expected, Lyra noted grimly. This is why the Dominion has struggled against them. The battle intensified. Human ships took damage but continued fighting with remarkable resilience. When systems failed, they switched to backups or alternatives. When strategies proved ineffective, they shifted tactics without hesitation. Galileo in position, came the report. What exactly does this weapon do? Lyra asked, suddenly concerned about what humans might have developed in their isolation. Morgan met her gaze directly. It releases nanites programmed to target the specific biological markers of the harvester hulls. They'll dismantle the ship at the molecular level. You created a weapon that destroys organic matter at the molecular level. Lyra's patterns flashed with alarm. No, Chen corrected. We created nanites that can dismantle specific organic patterns. They're programmed for harvester biology only, based on our analysis of the signals we detected. Deploy, Chen ordered. The Galileo craft accelerated toward the harvester vessel, evading drones with surprising agility. When it reached optimal range, it discharged its payload, a cloud of microscopic machines invisible to the naked eye. For several tense minutes, nothing seemed to happen. Then, areas of the harvester vessel began to discolor. The discoloration spread, the organic hull material literally falling apart as the nanites consumed it. "It's working," whispered Morgan. The harvester, seemingly aware of its vulnerability, attempted to retreat. Its movements became erratic as systems failed. Within 20 minutes, what had been a deadly threat was reduced to drifting organic debris. In the command center, humans celebrated with restrained professionalism, while the Alestians watched in stunned silence. "You developed this weapon based only on detected signals?" Lyra finally asked. "We developed prototype nanites that could be programmed for different targets," Chen clarified. "Your information allowed us to program them specifically for harvesters." "We've been fighting them for centuries," Lyra said softly, "with limited success." Morgan studied her with new understanding. "That's why the Dominion expands, to create buffer zones against the harvesters." "Partially," Lyra admitted, "though our methods became problematic over time. The original purpose was lost to Imperial ambition. The aftermath of the battle brought human and Alestian representatives together in a new context. The debris of the harvester vessel was carefully collected for study by both species. Information flowed more freely, suspicion giving way to cautious collaboration." 2 weeks later, Lyra and Morgan stood in the observation dome of Harmony Station, watching Earth rotate below. "The Dominion Council has approved a formal alliance treaty," Lyra announced, with surprisingly little debate. "Nothing like a common enemy to forge friendship," Morgan observed. "It's more than that," Lyra countered. "You've shown us alternatives to our established methods. Many Alestians find that refreshing." Morgan smiled. "And we're eager to learn from you too. Your aesthetic isn't just pretty. There's efficiency in it we hadn't considered." A fair exchange then. Lyra's patterns rippled with what Morgan had learned to recognize as amusement. "Though I suspect the galaxy isn't ready for what happens when human adaptability meets Alestian precision." "They'd better get ready," Morgan replied, looking out at the stars. "Because ready or not, here we come." In the space above Earth, Alestian and human ships now patrolled together, still distinct in design and philosophy, but united in purpose. Different approaches to the same problems, complementary strengths covering mutual weaknesses, and somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, word was spreading of a new power emerging, not human, not Alestian, but something unexpected and formidable, something adaptive.